Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Soccer Talk. I'm your host, Joe Prince Wright. As you can see, I'm joined by Nick Mendola and Andy Edwards, Pro Soccer Talk's finest, as we discuss all the breaking news topics and analyze what's going on in the soccer world. Premier League, Champions League, US national team, we'll have you covered. And Nick, I'm going to start with you, mate. What has it been like over the last week? The Premier League is kind of still throwing up some crazy results, but there's a lot going on, right? How have you been enjoying it?
I love it because throughout Europe, we're also very much in derby season. So, we had AC Milan Inter a couple weeks ago. We had the G Arena in Dortmund Schalke. We've had so many London derbies because pretty much the Premier League seems like it's London these days. So I loved every minute of it. I'm so excited. We had El Clasico. Didn't go the way I wanted it to go. And now, well, we'll talk about it in a little bit, right? Another big one for Barca. So it's a great time of year. And the Champions League every week, I don't know how you guys feel, but sign me up. Sign me up.
Yeah, it works really well. Andy, what about you, mate?
No, I absolutely hate the Champions League. Nothing about it is enjoyable for me. Of course, everybody loves the Champions League, Nick. I think the fact, and we'll talk about it a little bit this week, or at least I will. Not all the goals over the weekend, but still some of the surprising and slightly shocking results in the Premier League, like more coherent games of soccer / football being played, yet we're still getting the results that are a little bit shocking. So it's a nice mixture of everything. I think we're going to have a little bit of everything this season by the time we get to the end of it.
Yeah, I was just about to say, even though it wasn't as dramatic as some of the other weeks, it's still the shock results there. Still a lot of players really playing above their level, and a lot of teams who've started the Premier League season really well. So it's going to be a lot of ups and downs. Been a roller coaster this season so far. It's going to be that way for the next 9 months in the Premier League, Champions League, and everything else in between. So if you're new to Pro Soccer Talk, I'm based here in England. Andy is in Kansas City. Nick is in Buffalo, New York. We grab a drink, have a chat, and let's get things kicked off for this week. All right, lads. Big news, really, for US national team circles has been how many men's national team players are in the Champions League squads right now. We have a record 10 players this season who play for the Stars and Stripes. And this week is a big one coming up. We have Juventus against Barcelona, which potentially is Cristiano Ronaldo and Weston McKennie against Lionel Messi and Sergio Dest, which, these old rivals doing battle once again. Ronaldo and Messi. Obviously, Ronaldo's coming off the back of a COVID test and is we're going to find out if he is available to play for Juventus against Messi and his old foes at Barcelona. But Juve and Barca both going through transitional periods, new managers, battling to patch things up on the pitch. But Nick, I'm going to come to you. Who do you think has the edge in this one? And I'm going to ask you this question to both of you guys. Do we ever think that Messi and Ronaldo can play on the same team? Because over the years, they've kind of started to become a bit more friendly, a bit more cordial. God knows how many FIFA and UEFA award ceremonies they've been at together. So finally, they're mates. But Nick, what do you expect in this one? And what do you expect from those two going forward?
So I'm not sure what to make of this one, if only because Juve has started poorly this season. Relatively speaking, and so has Barca. I think Barca might have more depth in attack, in young attack, though. So is that reliable? Pirlo is the X factor here. What's his plan? Something we're going to get to in a little bit that I absolutely love, so make sure you ask me about it again, is there was a report today that we may see Weston McKennie in a back three, which as a U.S. men's national team, I love. So let's talk about that in a bit. But I think the edge goes to Juve just through veteran leadership, especially if Ronaldo plays. And I believe Piqué on a red card, right? So that definitely hurts Barca's back line. As for will they ever end up on the same team, I like our chances of seeing Messi at New York City and Ronaldo at Inter Miami. I think it fits kind of what we're seeing. Should Ronaldo be allowed in the States, but that's a story for another day. I just don't see both ending up in Qatar or China. Maybe PSG on a super team if Neymar can be convinced to stay. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't want to see it. I don't think I like I like having them as the the foil for one another. That's the way it's been for the last I guess decade, essentially, since Ronaldo left United, and even since he's gone to Juventus, they're still finding ways to kind of get at each other and link up on the field. So I don't want them to. I think they could probably. I don't know. I don't know. But there's not enough shots in a game, I guess, for those two to split up between them. Think about the other 9 guys on the field. They'd never get a touch of the ball. They'd never get a look at goal. But yeah, no, I don't ever want them to. And I just think it's so, it's almost mind blowing. I'm listening to Joe say Cristiano Ronaldo, and I thought he was going to say, and Messi facing, and he says, and Weston McKennie. And then Lionel Messi and Serginho. It doesn't. The brain can't comprehend the fact that these two might face off with one another on Wednesday if Ronaldo's back, and they're going to each have a fairly important American player potentially in the starting lineup with them as well that are going to be relied upon to kind of foil the other one as well. McKennie in the middle with when Messi's cutting inside, and then Dest on the far side. He's going to be the one, anytime Ronaldo drifts out to the wing, that's going to be responsible for him. So they're directly going to be involved in kind of that head-to-head matchup of those two, superstars, all-time greats.
And obviously, that's pretty much the undercard, right? Messi against Ronaldo. We're looking forward to McKennie against Dest. That's the main event. And Nick, obviously, Dest made history when he played in Clasico, first U.S. national team player in history to do that. How did he play? He's still only a teenager, but I mean, he has really started life very well, it seems, at Barcelona and in La Liga. He seems to really be trusted by Ronald Koeman already.
When you're writing about an American in a big game like that, especially as an American, you're prepared to downplay how he did. I mean, it's just kind of how you don't want to be showing bias. He was very, very good on a day that really only Frankie de Jong and Ansu Fati showed up for the whole 90 minutes. Dest was right there. 95% passing, 5 of 6 dribbles completing. That was a game high. 8 of 13 duels won. Vinicius did almost nothing on his side. And perhaps more important, there's that viral video of, remember in his first game against Canada, Davies kind of worked him. He did that to Marcelo. So there's an evolution there. I am so impressed. I didn't know if he was ready to be a starter at that level, but there is hardly a higher level than El Clasico.
Andy, McKennie as well seems to have really been solid, and Pirlo's really counted on. I think when he moved to Juve from Schalke, we all kind of thought, it's a bit of a weird move, but it's going to be good for him. But how often is he going to play? But he seems to be trusted already. And obviously, he's had issues with the positive COVID test, but he's come back from that. How important is he to Juventus moving forward under Pirlo?
Yeah, well, I think it became clear almost immediately that the fact that he was signed, one of the first, if not the first player signed after Pirlo took over as the manager, and then he immediately went straight into the team for him as well. A first-time manager like Pirlo is always probably going to play it a little bit more on the safe side with how he sets his team up tactically and everything. And so I guess McKennie kind of fits into that, being a little bit more of a destroyer, a linker of play versus someone who kind of really ventures forward. And I know you mentioned the fact that he might play there along the 3-man back line and everything. So he's a nice little utility piece, I think, for Pirlo to have, and he has gotten regular run of games when he's been available to play. So it's been pretty positive. I would hope, I think you could even say you would expect him to really grow and evolve as a player tactically, the mental side of the game, going and playing in Italy and playing for a manager like Pirlo and with some of the quality veterans, just incredibly smart international players that are in that team as well that he works with on a day-to-day basis. I think probably maybe 6 months or a full season, we will really see growth from Weston McKennie after making that move to Juventus, which, obviously one of the biggest clubs in the world, but just one of the best places to go and be a part of a well-oiled machine. I guess probably the second best outside of Bayern Munich.
Pretty much. And obviously a player who's done very well and progressed extremely well at a big club is Christian Pulisic. I can see the sign behind you there, Andy. Bit of a spooky theme there, Halloween coming up. I like it. Obviously, he's good mates with McKennie. He is pretty much the leading light for US players in the world now, of course, but especially in the Champions League. So you have him at Chelsea, Gio Reyna ripping things up at Dortmund, Tyler Adams a bit injury prone at the moment at Leipzig, been really unlucky there. But as we said at the top of this, 10 US men's national team players are on Champions League squad this season. It's a record. And how big of a deal is this for the US national team, Andy? How big of a deal is this?
It's huge. I mean, we've never been. We used to make a big deal out of one player starting or coming off the bench in a group stage game in the Champions League. That used to be, the Twitter equivalent of the alarms going off. Everybody get to your TV. You got to see these final 8 minutes to see how this guy does with 3 touches of the ball. That's where we're coming from not so long ago, not even 10 years, like 5 years ago, maybe 4 or 3 before Pulisic really, exploded and started to carry that torch. So it really is a big thing for an individual level. Now, for another day, how do they take all those great quality, talented pieces and put them together into one men's national team? We'll worry about that hopefully in 2022. But no, it's just, it's to me, I can't even wrap my brain around it. It's incomprehensible that we have this many players at the clubs that they're at. They're not at, all due respect, Genk, just getting in as the 4th team in a group to be slaughtered. They're at the big teams now.
Big boys, yeah, they are. Nick, same question for you, really. How big of a deal is this, and who do we expect to go furthest this season? I mean, McKennie with Juve, Pulisic at Chelsea, Reina at Dortmund. Who do you think's actually got a chance of going to the latter stages and maybe even winning the Champions League with their team?
Holy cow, what a question. I mean, Barca has Messi, so you can't rule them out, although as poor as they look. Pulisic is, and we'll talk about Chelsea later. I don't know what to make of them because they have all the pieces. You have to arrange the puzzle, but I think they have all the pieces. I might go for Reina. Incredible chemistry with Haaland. And the reason I say that, even though they lost to Lazio in the first game, is I also think they have a chance to come out of that group in a good spot. They're going to dodge Bayern for a little while as well. And I think Bayern is the favorite just by virtue of them being in the same country. So I don't necessarily love picking any over the other, but I'm going to go with Reina as long as a big day coming up for him, by the way, when Lucien Favre plays his next Classicer, because if you have a manager who believes in you as a 17-year-old and another manager comes in, as much as we love Reina, we don't know what will happen. So everybody, every American, even the Bayern fan, should probably be rooting for a good showing from Dortmund in a couple of weeks.
And how excited are you, Nick, as a US national team fan, to see all these young players really, as Andy said, not at mid-level teams in Europe. They're at the big boys and they're playing and they're doing really well.
As opposed to saying, can I get an amen with you being overseas? Can I get an over the moon? Is that British parlance enough here? I love it. I'm so happy. I remember when we were talking about, Dempsey, and is it an okay move for him to go from Fulham to Spurs? And now if you go to NBCSports.com, you go to our site and you search the 25-man rosters for the Premier League, there's another 10 kids who are US eligible in the academies. That was insane to me. Robinson, Reams, Stefan, who's going to play real meaningful games for them, at least early in the season. So, man, it's the best. As someone who's gone to so many U.S. games, even as a fan before I was a writer, this is the best time to be a U.S. fan ever.
There you go. That's a good way to leave that segment. Very positive vibes for the U.S. national team, as a host of the star young players are in Champions League action, and we'll keep you updated with how that's all going on Pro Soccer Talk. Don't worry about that. It's going to be a very, very big week for Americans abroad. Next big news topic I wanted to switch gears to, lads, is Paul Pogba at Manchester United. This is a big topic over here in England. Everyone is always kind of having their say on Pogba, how he slots in at United, where should he play. And it's kind of shocking to think he's been back at United now since he re-signed from Juve for 4 years. And we're still kind of having these questions, right? We're still asking, what's his best position? Is he a guaranteed starter? How can he be put into this team by Solskjaer without taking away the balance? I'm going to kick this off by saying this might be left field, and there's a reason I've said that, because I think his best position is probably on the left. I remember watching him when he was much younger at Juve in the Champions League against Manchester City, and he almost ran the game from the left side of midfield. It gave him a little bit more space to operate in, to see those passes, a little bit more space to run down the wing, cut inside rather than congested central areas. And he's been used pretty much here, there, and everywhere. Deeper roles for France and United, number 10, obviously wide there. And I think that was a really good spot for him. So, Andy, I can see you nodding your head there. So I feel like you have a very strong opinion on this. What happens now for Pogba at United? Because nobody seems to know what direction this is going to go in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you allowed to have anything besides a strong opinion about Paul Pogba? You can't have a halfway. You have to be fully convicted in your opinion of Paul Pogba when you log onto the internet. It's just the only way to discuss Paul Pogba is he's either the best player in the world or he's the worst player in the world. He is such a polarized figure. Part of that comes from going to United. Part of that comes from, just the personality and the loud personality, the haircuts and the fashion and the social media posts, which is, absolutely nothing wrong with any of those things. But he gets, taken up to the woodshed in a way that a lot of other players don't for a lot of the very same things. And so, he's always going to be a topic that somebody wants to debate. Somebody wants to put him down. Somebody will always defend him as well. I was thinking as you were talking there, Joe, about him playing on the left, and I don't even know if it's as much of a positional thing as it is a system thing. So when he's playing there on the left for Juventus, he's doing so with an all-out wingback playing there on that left side with him. And so he is essentially he's a space filler at that point, because the wingback is bombing forward and providing all the width and attack. And so he is then kind of rotating in defensively out wide, where he's got the physicality, the athleticism, the smarts as well to defend in space in that area. But he's also got the ability to tuck inside in possession and drive forward and carry the ball. That's the one thing he did the most for that Juventus team, because it was with Pirlo playing behind him and Kwadwo Asamoah, and those two just did all the work in the midfield, and it worked. And so you look at who his managers have been at United. Jose Mourinho, the last person I would trust to really get a performance out of a player like that. That's not a slam on Mourinho. That's just the way that he has been for the majority of his managerial career. And now Solskjaer, all due respect to him, I just think he's completely out of his depth at a club like Manchester United. And so he hasn't really failed United like I think a lot of people have. He's been failed by the club at every level since he was re-signed. The managers haven't been great, but they've been hired by somebody who's been even worse than them. So it's a trickle-down problem at Manchester United. And Paul Pogba, I think, bears the brunt of it because he is the biggest name, the biggest face, the one that everybody knows, and he's an easy target.
Nick, what about you? Can he play with Bruno Fernandes? That's like the one big question, right? Centrally, can the balance be kept at United to have those two star players? And they are stars. They're wonderful talents. But you kind of almost lose the solidity defensively, right? If they're both playing together. What's your thoughts on that midfield situation? I know you have some strong Donny van der Beek thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I think a good manager would have figured it out. And I hate to just keep railing on Solskjaer. Seems like a nice guy. But Fred and McTominay, or Fred
nice guy,
and Matt,
tries hard. Yeah.
The worst thing you can hear. Seems like a great guy.
Great job, great effort, right? Look, I just think you've got to find a way for it to work. And we keep seeing, again, another lovely man in Daniel James. But are you telling me that the new Jesse Lingard is better than Paul Pogba there? They bought Donny van de Beek, which to me rang out like they were going to sell Paul Pogba. One of them could be your number 8 next to Bruno. But if you don't trust, Bruno's been incredible, by the way. Absolutely wonderful player. So he's your attacking mid. He's the focus of your attack. If you don't have a guy you can play next to him, so you got to drop 2 guys behind him, do you think Man City or Liverpool or any of these other big teams is going to say, wow, my attacking mid is so bad defensively that I'm just going to put 2 guys behind him who are just going to stand there? I just don't see it happening. And as far as his reputation, real quickly, wasn't that just ruined? Is that the Sir Alex effect? We all agreed that he does, not we all agreed, but it's been generally agreed that he does nothing wrong. And he's the guy who said he couldn't cut it. So there's a nation of Manchester United fans who say, Sir Alex was right, Sir Alex was right, Sir Alex was right. And I think that carries a ton of weight.
Pogba's talent is undoubted. And what many people here are saying, is he just a talent or is he a player? Does he have all the ability, but maybe the game situations, he's not put, like Andy said, in the right positions by his coaches? I think it's a mixture of everything because we've seen him be brilliant for France. He's a World Cup winning player, was influential in that team, can play slightly deeper. Didier Deschamps gave him a much more disciplined role, can easily do that. So I do think it's a case of him being made a scapegoat time and time again. He has the talent. Project Restart, when he was fit, played really well with Fernandes as a 2. But then again, United were kind of going for it. And they had a lot of winnable fixtures, let's not forget, in Project Restart. So I think it's For me, I'd love to see him line up on the left. That means maybe pushing Rashford to the right, Greenwood dropping out, Martial. You got Cavani maybe starting up front. There's a lot of options there, but I think you have to try and get all of your best players on the pitch for Man United right now and try and work out balance-wise around that. And it's the same, right, in any sport, in the NBA, NFL. You try and get all your best playmakers on the field at the same time and hope that they're obviously talented enough to make it work and make it happen. So, lads, I don't know, final thought, maybe 30 seconds each on Pogba and where we go from here, because he's consistently linked to moves away. Consistently, we're not sure if he's going to sign new contracts or whatever at United. So who knows what's going to happen here?
Yeah, quick point, too. France is the big point. You made the point. I want to just underline it. The guy won a World Cup. He's a fixture for them in one of the most talented midfields in the world that only gets to train together once a month at best. So, Ole, your move. And the second part is pretty straightforward as well. I hate Mino Raiola. I mean, I don't know him as a person, but he's the one who in January Pogba is injured. He's out of the picture. United fans aren't worried about him. And he comes up and says, I don't think Solskjaer is the man for the job. So as long as guys like that exist, what are we doing? It's like a manager who has his only job is to keep getting more money coming in. So that it bothers me a lot.
This will be very brief. I think the best way to sum it up is if you have a problem with Paul Pogba, you're probably the problem. That goes for managers. That goes for he is just a player of a quality and caliber and level that we're going to look back. How long is it going to have to be before we look back and say, wow, just what a wasted period of his career and the most important part of his career by a club that just had no idea what it was doing. And that's an absolute shame.
It is. I'll tell you what isn't a shame, though. We're going to now focus on 3 things we learned over the last week in the Premier League. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk for this, because the 3 lads you see on the screen here, we do this for every single game, all season long, give our opinion, usually get slated for it, but we carry on anyway, regardless. I'm going to kick things off because I was at St Mary's to see the mighty Southampton beat Everton 2-0, hand them their first defeat of the season. I was basically sat on the Everton bench, so I really had to watch what was going on around me and try and figure out. But there was a lot of swearing, a lot of frustration. Andre Gomez was sat in front of me. Ancelotti was, at one point, him and Jordan Pickford were having an argument from 40, 50 yards away, which was entertaining, but not if you're an Everton fan, of course. But yeah, I learned that we were all on board the Everton hype train, right? Everybody was. Even Everton fans were trying hard not to be. But defensive issues were there from the get-go. Ancelotti was screaming at Michael Keane, Mina, the fullbacks to be focused on set pieces. And down the flanks, they got destroyed. Southampton with Bertrand and Walker-Peters totally isolated the 2 fullbacks. And in front of them, obviously, Alex Iwobi got hooked up at half-time on one wing, James Rodriguez on the other. They weren't helping out at all defensively. And again, that brings me to my second point. Iwobi and Sigurdsson were in the team. Obviously missing Richarlison through injury. Ben Godfrey was playing out of position at right back because Seamus Coleman was out. So I learned that Everton have defensive issues that will really hold them back from being a top 6 or maybe even a top 4 team this season. And I also learned that their squad isn't strong enough. 1 to 11, they're a really good team. But just like Liverpool were under Jurgen Klopp in the first few seasons, as soon as they have a couple of injuries, these players coming in are almost, guys, for want of a better phrase, have just been left around, just hanging around from previous managers. Nobody else wants them, so they have to kind of use them, don't fit their philosophy. And yeah, I wrote a whole thing. I thought 4 things we learned that I actually wrote. I had a bonus one in there. So that's up on Pro Soccer Talk at NBCSports.com. But really enjoyed the game at St Mary's. Southampton were really good. Everton were really bad. And I'm going to finish with this by saying Bill Kenwright, the longtime Everton chairman, was sat behind me in the director's box. And his one comment and the second goal went in, "Oh, Blues, come on." That pretty much summed it up. And it sounded like he's had a lot of experience over the years. But let's not get too down on Everton. They're a good team. But I learned that there still are a few issues for them before we can talk about them being a top 4 challenger. So what else did you guys learn? Andy, I'm going to start with you.
Real quick, a point on Everton. That's a club that spent a lot of money in the last 5 years. Just go back and look at their transfer deals that they've done in the last 5 years. 50 million for Gylfi Sigurdsson, who you mentioned there, hasn't really happened for him. They've, for as good as they've been this year, they've had some big misses in recent seasons. The thing I learned this weekend, I think that I learned, and I'll put a question mark on the end of it. Just kind of ... question mark at the end. Normalcy has returned in the Premier League in terms of the number of goals scored per game. Now, some of the results are still a little bit surprising, but we didn't have a single game all weekend with 4 goals or more. In the opening weekends of the season, I went back and looked at it here. We had 4 last weekend, 6 the weekend before that, 5 the weekend before that, and 6 the weekend before that. And we dropped off straight down to 0 over the weekend. Now, there was a little bit of a discussion on the post-game show on Monday between the two Robbies, and I think that I'm in pretty much agreement with what they said. The fact that I think some managers have looked at what's happened the first month and a half of the season and said, we can't go on like this all season. Fatigue is just going to become a huge issue for these players. And so we're going to have to do a little bit more rotation. I think we saw a number of teams do that on the weekend, some through injury, some through, personal choice. But just getting back and establishing themselves defensively to where that they can control games is going to be so important. And I think probably the first couple teams that kind of go through that process and come out the other side and are able to actually slow games down through a little bit of possession, a little bit better defensive shape, and just discipline. I think there's been a lack of discipline defensively the first month and a half of the season that's led to some of the crazy score lines that we've had. And so the first team that gets back to that might just have a leg up for a few weeks, that they're able to kind of establish themselves how they're going to play for the majority of this season, because that was unsustainable. Those first 5 weeks could not continue on for this season. Otherwise, we would have seen every individual, every team record smashed to pieces by March. We really would have. So it was a little bit, maybe not as exciting, but I think it was refreshing this weekend to see kind of the tactical battle and not just, who's going to score the last goal of the game? They're probably going to win this one.
Nick, what about you? What'd you learn, mate?
I learned that I don't know what to do with 3 of the top 4. And if you're someone who considers Leicester City part of that, then 4 of the top, whatever. I have confidence that for all their warts, Liverpool, Man City, and Spurs are going to be fine. There's depth there, there's system. The managers have experience, whether you like their experience or not, especially compared to Ole, Lampard, and Arteta. But let me focus on Manchester United and Chelsea. They combined for less than 1 expected goal in their game. Advanced goal stats said Christian Pulisic was the only one who was anywhere near scoring. And on the other side, there were other players. Mata had a good game, but it was all about Bruno Fernandes again. Now, you can have faith with that knowledge and with their talent that both teams will sort it out in attack. But I'm just not sure we're going to see anything worthwhile consistently from Manchester United. Plus, 6 letters, WTF VAR. That Harry Maguire call is among the worst I've ever seen. I just don't understand. If it happens on every play, then there should be a penalty on every play. That is a bear hug, and he wins the header by holding the guy down to put his head on the ball. I just don't get it, man. I don't get it.
That was Harry Maguire on the phone trying to stick up for himself, but clearly there's no excuse for that whatsoever, because yeah, that was the big one. I think we didn't want to spend all season talking about VAR. We're going to come back around to it, but we saw a few good weeks with okay decisions, but yeah, that one was mind-boggling. And then the red card for Luka Dean was a talking point. Abubakar Kamara. I just have a problem sometimes with the delays on if an incident happened while the ball's in play. VAR officials don't seem to take that much time to look at it, but if something happens and the ball goes out, then they have a few minutes. They tell the referee to stop, play, the ball is dead, and then they seem to come to better conclusions when they have longer to make those decisions. But United broke down the other end. I think Rashford went down in the box under a challenge, and they were too busy looking at that penalty decision than going back and looking at the other end.
Joe, they did it with, that's what's killing me. It feels like they did it better last year. Trent Alexander-Arnold, the big play, not on the whole, but think about that Man City play with Alexander-Arnold's handball before was it for Firmino from distance, right? Fabinho.
Yep.
They broke that down. I don't think they got it right, but they were able to do that sequence. And you're right, everything, they're so worried about speed now. And that's it's probably been a directive, but we saw it work better in the past. So again, it is only year 2 of a brand new institution, but I hated the call. I don't know how you don't look at that.
I agree with you. I agree with that. So that's what we learned in the Premier League this week, and it was very interesting. Not quite as many goals or drama, but still tactically, it was very intriguing. Okay, we're going to focus on match week 7 now and preview the big games coming up. Of course, at ProSoccerTalk on NBCSports.com, we'll have team news, stream links, and anything else you need on how to watch the games live across the USA this weekend. I'm going to kick things off with Man United against Arsenal. I think this is obviously a huge game for both teams. For me, I want to see if one of these teams can put together a full 90 minutes, because I think we've seen 45 minutes or 60 minutes in certain games of them defending well or attacking well, but not necessarily putting it all together. And again, it's early in the season. For Arsenal, they got a few new players with Thomas Partey, Gabriel coming in, and obviously Aubameyang, who we all had pretty much as the top goal scorer at the start of the season, and he's, not getting any chances to score whatsoever. So again, this goes back to that point where I think managers now are being slightly more defensive because they're concerned about the workload on their players. And both United and Arsenal have been too defensive for me. For the attacking talents they have, they've been too cautious. Maybe that is a fact of them trying to work their way into the season. But the way that other teams, Everton, Aston Villa, Southampton, Crystal Palace, other teams like this, and Tottenham are kind of taking it by the scruff of the neck this season, they can't really afford United and Arsenal to get any further behind than they already are. So I'm excited for this one, especially the midfield battle there with Partey and Bruno Fernandes in particular, if he plays centrally. I think that's a key battle to look for in that one. So United against Arsenal, it's coming up on Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Cannot wait for that. Nick Mendola, which game are you looking forward to, mate?
I'm looking forward to Liverpool-West Ham. I think we all know what Liverpool can do. They haven't totally looked themselves this year, or maybe they have. Remember last year, they were the team of destiny, right? Like they would win games like the Sheffield United game. They just found a way to make it happen so many times last season. So maybe this is Liverpool, and it's also Liverpool without VVD, despite the fact Fabinho with an error right at the weekend, but looked great in the Champions League. But I'm more focused on West Ham, and I am not a David Moyes disciple. He has not done much.
Really?
Yeah, look, I respected what he did at Everton, and hearing Tim Howard on our broadcast talk about how good of a job he's done and how he's a disciplinarian and you got to trust him. All right, I'm kind of seeing that right now. So after years of doing nothing impressive and a number of very unimpressive things, they expected goals. They were better than Arsenal in the game they lost, and they have not lost since. They did lose to Newcastle, but listen, Steve Bruce, he's the English Guardiola. The Antonio injury could be big, but they have Seb Haller. They do have decent depth, at least in terms of people who you can think might do a job for them. So the Irons have spent a lot. They've always looked like a team that might be a top-down problem as opposed to a talent problem. Let's see. Maybe Moyes is having his moment here. Maybe he's reclaiming the I do love that. I do love that. It's great.
I can't get through a segment without speaking about West Ham without doing that, really. It's brilliant. I can just see Declan Rice. That's his team talk as skipper before the game. He just stands there and just does that. And West Ham have played pretty well against Liverpool in recent outings. They've matched up pretty well with them. I remember, obviously, the end of last season as well. Gave them quite a scare. But have to wait and see. Andy, what about you, mate? Which game you got your eye on this weekend?
Leeds United hosting Leicester. It's so interesting to me because I've been hugely impressed with Leeds this season. I did not know what to expect coming up. I know what to expect from any of the promoted teams, and I think I'll take that back. I think we knew what to expect from Fulham probably. And West Brom, they did it over 46 games to get up last season. You want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but they've offered essentially the same thing as Fulham, which is nothing to the Premier League so far, except for a bunch of goals conceded. And so, but Leeds and I think I picked Leeds to go down before the season started because there was just uncertainty about one, it's a different, transition from season to season. There's a lack of preseason. They've not spent a ton, and they did a little bit in between when the season started, and then they got to the closing of the transfer window. It seems like they've done pretty good business and brought in a couple of impact players and players that have just been really solid for that team, and that probably have another level or two to go up with them as well. And so they've essentially been the same team this year as they were last year. They've been ruthlessly efficient, very, very difficult to play against. And I find that to be, in this matchup against Leicester, a really, really difficult, interesting, complicated matchup for both of those teams. It's almost like playing a version of yourself. Leicester a little bit less with the intensity on the press and everything, but they want to get those chances in behind with Jamie Vardy. We saw what they did away to Arsenal on the weekend. It was nothing really happening for 60 minutes. He came on, the game completely changed. And immediately Vardy is in behind, through balls are being played back in there. He gets on the end of one chance the entire time that he's on the field. It's in the back of the net. So Leeds will create a ton of chances against this Leicester team. They've not been, the most efficient with putting them away. And Leicester will look to sit a little bit deeper defensively and then counter on them. And are Leeds going to be able to kind of stylistically handle that change, compared to what they've had in recent weeks? Certainly different than the way Arsenal plays. So it's just, for a lot of different reasons, a really interesting matchup to me.
Really interesting. The Vardy party, let's see if that continues, or Bielsa and his boys will keep rolling. And who knows where Leeds United could go this season. So a few other games quickly to look at ahead of this weekend. Spurs against Brighton. Let's see if Gareth Bale can get his name back in the lights at Tottenham and get a start in the Premier League. Villa against Saints, two informed teams early. And Burnley against Chelsea. Let's see if Polisseni can make it back-to-back hat-tricks at Turf Moor in the Premier League era for him. So all left for me to say is thanks for joining us at Pro Soccer Talk. Look forward to the games this weekend and watching them along with you. You can find the full schedule, stream links, team news, anything else you need over at PST. Lads, pleasure as always. I'll speak to you very soon.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe. Make sure you subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and always join us every weekend at 7 a.m. on NBCSN for Premier League mornings. Plus, make sure you subscribe to Peacock Premium as well, where you can watch exclusively live 175 games and same-day on-demand replays of all 380 Premier League matches as well.